It always happens the same way. You sit down, you exhale, and before you've said a single word, a paw lands on your hand, softly, like it was placed there on purpose. Because it was. Most people see this and think, he wants something, a walk, a snack, a belly rub, and sometimes, yes, but researchers who study canine behavior have started paying attention to the way dogs do this. The pressure, the timing, the stillness that follows. And what they've found is that your dog isn't just asking for something. Your dog is saying something, and it's not what you think. Here's the thing nobody says out loud about owning a dog. Sometimes, the most overwhelming moments aren't the big ones. The zoomies, the greetings at the door, the ridiculous joy of a dog who hasn't seen you in 8 hours and acts like you've returned from war. Sometimes, it's the small ones. A paw on your wrist while you're reading, a paw on your thigh while you're staring at nothing. A weight that says, without any fanfare, I'm here. I noticed you. And in those moments, something happens that you can feel but can't quite explain. A softening, a settling, a sense of being known by a creature who doesn't speak your language, but somehow speaks you. It turns out, science has been trying to explain that feeling, and what they've found is more layered and more moving than anyone expected. So why does your dog actually do this? Not poetically, mechanically. What's driving the paw? There are at least 3 distinct things happening, and they often occur simultaneously. First, learned communication. Behavioral analysts call it manding. Your dog discovered, probably by accident as a puppy, that placing a paw on you produces a response. You looked over. You touched them back. You spoke softly. The behavior was reinforced, so it was repeated. This is real, and it matters. But it's only the surface. Second, a carryover from infancy. Puppies knead their mother's body with their paws to stimulate milk flow. It's one of the first coordinated physical actions a dog ever takes, and it's wired to comfort, warmth, and safety. That motor pattern doesn't vanish. It evolves. Third, and this is the one most people miss, the paw placement itself is a signal. Norwegian canine ethologist Torrid Hogas identified paw lifting as one of over 30 calming signals dogs use to de-escalate tension and communicate non-threat. A paw offered low and soft isn't a demand. In the grammar of canine body language, it's closer to a whisper. It says, I am not a threat. I am with you. I am yours. Those 3 things, the learned habit, the infant echo, and the social signal, are all happening at once. And they're just the beginning. But knowing what it is doesn't tell you what it means. And that's where it gets remarkable. In 2012, researchers at Goldsmiths, University of London, set up a deceptively simple experiment. Deborah Custance and Jennifer Mayer placed dogs in a room with 2 people, the dog's owner and a complete stranger. One person would cry. The other would hum or talk normally. Then the researchers watched what the dogs did. Here's what most people would expect. The dogs would go to their owner, their person, their source of comfort. But that's not what happened. The dogs approached whoever was crying, owner or stranger, and they did it with a specific kind of body language, submissive, gentle, and oriented toward contact. Nuzzling, licking, placing their body against the person. They weren't seeking comfort. They were offering it. And they were offering it to someone they had no bond with, no training history with, no reason to approach, except that the person was in pain. Your dog doesn't go to the crying person because they're confused. They go because they can't not. 6 years later, a team led by Emily Sanford at Johns Hopkins University pushed the question further. The study was called, and this matters, Timmy's in the Well, named after Lassie. 34 dogs were separated from their owners by a clear door held shut with magnets, easy enough for any dog to push open. Half the owners were told to cry and call for help. The other half hummed Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Here's the results that stopped researchers. Roughly the same number of dogs opened the door in both groups, but the dogs who heard crying opened it 3 times faster. Average time to open the door when the owner was humming, 96 seconds. When the owner was crying, 23. And then the detail that reframes everything. The dogs who didn't open the door when their owner cried, the ones you might assume didn't care, actually showed the highest stress responses of all. Pacing, panting, whining. Their heart rates were through the roof. They weren't indifferent. They were overwhelmed. They cared so much that their own distress paralyzed them. The dogs who didn't come running loved you just as much. They just couldn't hold your pain and their own at the same time. Now here's where the paw comes back in. Neuroscientists studying touch, not specifically in dogs but across mammals, have identified a class of nerve fibers called C-tactile afferents. They were first discovered by Swedish researcher Åke Vallebo. These nerves don't register pressure or temperature. They don't help you locate where you've been touched. They do one thing. They respond to slow, gentle, sustained contact. Exactly the kind of touch that a paw resting on your skin provides. And they send a signal straight to the insular cortex, the part of the brain that processes emotion, not the part that processes sensation. Emotion. These fibers exist in hairy skin across mammals. Your dog has them. You have them. And when your dog places a paw on you and holds it there, both of your nervous systems are receiving the same category of input, a signal that researchers now describe as a safety signal, a message transmitted through skin that tells the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, you are not in danger. You can stand down. That paw on your arm isn't asking you for anything. It's telling your brain that you're safe. And here's the part that makes researchers pause. A 2021 study published in Scientific Reports compared how wolves and dogs responded to physical contact with humans. Both species were hand-raised. Both had close relationships with their caretakers. But when researchers measured oxytocin, the neurochemical most associated with bonding and trust, they found that pet dogs showed a significant correlation between physical contact with their owners and rising oxytocin levels. Wolves did not show the same pattern. What this suggests is that the hormonal reward loop for interspecies touch, the chemical feedback that says this contact matters, seek it again, didn't just happen, it was shaped. Over thousands of years of co-evolution, dogs developed a nervous system that chemically reinforces contact with humans. Not just any contact, affiliative contact, the gentle, sustained, purposeful kind. Think about what that means for a second. Your dog's body was built, across millennia, to find peace in touching you. That's not training, that's evolution saying, this bond is worth keeping. There's a story I need to tell you. It was shared by a man whose wife was diagnosed with ALS, the disease that slowly takes the body while leaving the mind awake. They had a dog named Tex. When his wife could still sleep in their bedroom, Tex slept at the foot of the bed with her pink bathrobe. When she was moved to a hospital bed in the living room, Tex moved too. He barely fit, he slept at her feet anyway. For 6 months. When she was transferred to hospice, her husband brought Tex to visit. The dog jumped onto the bed and placed both paws on her hand. That's all. Just his paws on her hand. That night, Tex was restless. He slept on the floor instead of the bed. By morning, he was gone. He had pulled her pink bathrobe over himself and died in the night. His wife passed the next day. People at the memorial said Tex knew she was leaving, that he went ahead to meet her. I don't know if that's true. I don't think science has a framework for it. But I know this. A paw on a hand, in a hospice room, from a dog who slept 6 months where he didn't fit. That is not a learned trick. That is not a calming signal. That is something that doesn't have a name yet, and maybe doesn't need one. If you're sitting here right now, thinking about all the times your dog put a paw on you and you barely noticed, the times you moved it, or got up too quickly, or were looking at your phone, I need you to hear this. The research on C-tactile afferents shows that the safety signal works even when you're not paying attention. The Goldsmith study showed that dogs don't need you to respond correctly. They approach because your emotional state matters to them, not your reaction. And the Sanford study proved that even the dogs who freeze and do nothing are carrying your pain in their body. Your dog has never once kept score. So tonight, if a paw lands on you, heavy or light, brief or lingering, you don't have to do anything special. Just don't move it. Let it stay. That's enough. For both of you, That has always been enough. If you felt something during this video that you weren't expecting, that's what this channel is for. There's more here. Subscribe, and I'll keep going. Has your dog ever put a paw on you at a moment that felt like they knew something? Tell me that story. Okay, so that's a wrap up for today's video. I'll be back with a new one soon.